When I was in my mid-teens, our family friends, the Houses, invited us out to their camp on Lake Titus near Malone, New York. It's a beautiful, pristine lake. And while I was there, I found an old bamboo fly rod, an old sheepskin fly wallet with some flies in it, and I remember very well the automatic Shakespeare fly reel that went with the whole setup. One morning I took that gear out in their family canoe. Had no idea what I was doing, but decided to cast towards the shore, which I did, and lo and behold, I caught a 13-inch rainbow trout, which was the first rainbow I had ever seen. At the end of the trip, they gave me the Shakespeare automatic fly reel, and I used it all through high school. The fly that caught that fish was the Royal Coachman Wet, and I remember it was a snelled fly, not gut, I don't think. I think it was not snelled with nylon, but it was tied on a snelled hook, as were many wet flies in those days. Some great memories with some great friends. Tie in just behind the eye and take the thread back to the bend. You can use any kind of thread. You can make a light underbody if you really want the red floss to show up. I've always done this fly just with black thread throughout. I think this is uni thread, 8/0. Just a few strands of golden pheasant tippet for the tail. Don't overdo it. About shank length. Bind down forward right on top of the hook. We don't have to worry about a complicated underbody on this fly. Just keep the underbody level. Tie in a peacock herl tag, and I just use one strand for this, but I know a lot of guys twist up a couple strands or 3 strands, and that's fine too. I don't care how you do it. I wind this like a wet fly hackle on edge, and in this case, I want the stem, the stem that protrudes from the underside of the peacock herl strand. I want that side to lead, and that'll give me a as I wind, I want that stem to lead, and that'll give me a fairly compact tag. You see me stroking the hackle back just as I would a wet fly hackle. I'm actually stroking it in the way it in the opposite direction that it naturally goes. The flues would angle forward typically, and I stroke them back. I like to bind down everything underneath the hook, if at all possible. And that's a habit I've developed from doing the salmon flies. It's just sound practice. I like to tie the floss in towards the front and then wind it back and back forward again. Do the same thing with full dress salmon flies. It's probably not necessary. I've just gotten in the habit of doing it that way. On this fly, it's a fishing fly. It's not necessary to spend a lot of time burnishing this floss or making it look perfectly smooth. You may do that if you so choose. I don't have a problem with it. I don't do it. I tie these flies to fish. I'll do it on some of the more fancy flies, wet flies. I'll spend a lot of time on the bodies, getting the floss just perfectly glass smooth. On the more showy flies, this is just a good old fishing fly that works. Going to tie this peacock herl joint just as I did the first one. When it's not at the end of the fly, it's called a joint. When it's at the end of the fly, it's called a tag. There's been a lot of conjecture about these flies, about why the fish take them. Of course, nobody knows. Nobody has a clue, including me. It's always been my thought, especially the dry flies, that they take it as an ant. And I've also, I came to that conclusion myself, but I think it's Theodore Gordon and Theodore Gordon thought they were taken as ants. Preston Jennings thought they were taken as Isonychia due to the coloration of the red with the black showing through, giving a color like an Isonychia under the water. Who knows? That's the fun of fly fishing. You can't get in a trout's head. This is a brown hen hackle I've tied in by the tip. Going to wind it in close touching turns. I like to get about 4 turns or so. I don't leave myself a lot of room at the head on these wet flies. That promotes a shortened head. Very different from the heads on streamers, for instance, which tend to be elongated. These heads, you really want a more shortened bullet head type of look. Got one stray here left over. I'll pluck it out with tweezers. I love tweezers. And here's another one. And on the old wet flies, I typically pull the hackle down into something of a beard. I at least want to get it so that there aren't a lot of strands sticking up in the way of the wing. I don't want them interfering with the wing when I mount it, if I can help it. Always use your index finger to work against the thread torque. And always check the wing from the top before you bind it down and cut it off. Make sure that it's centered and looks good. Is actually straddling the top third of the hook on both sides. It's very easy to get both sides of the wing on your side of the hook. At least it's always been for me. And then to bind it down, start at the eye and wrap aggressively back up. Use a lot of force. I usually twist the bobbin up to make the thread strong before I wrap up the head like that. A 5 or 6 turn whip finish should do it. If it's no more than that, you know you've done your job. You've gotten the head short enough. You're good to go. Trim the thread. And always under tension with just one blade of your scissors. This is the cement I've been using recently. I've used all kinds of stuff in the past. Everything from Celear black varnish to Wapsi lacquer that came in a bottle. That stuff was great. It's too bad they don't make that anymore. I used to love Griff's Thin because it was very penetrating. And it would penetrate the head, and then you'd follow it up with some Sally Hansen's or something shiny. They stopped making Griff's, much to my dismay. So now I'm using 2 or 3 coats of this stuff. It's all right. It's not ideal. It doesn't penetrate as well as Griff's did, but it's fine. And over time, I've stopped obsessing quite as much about heads on flies. If you do a lot of salmon flies, you tend to obsess about these things. And I'm not sure how productive it really is. Decided to throw another coat on here. It looks like I've got a ton of glue on this bodkin. This bodkin has a very small needle. It was made for me by Dave Wood in Ravenna, Ohio. Dave is a wonderful artisan, makes some beautiful tools, and some beautiful flies as far as that goes. Here's the finished product after the glue is dried. Get to see it in all its splendor. It's a fun fly to tie and even more fun to fish. And you will be amazed at how well you can do with the Royal Coachman to this day.